Margaret sat by the frost-edged window of Porter's Café copyright, watching snowflakes drift past the street lamps outside. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup, feeling its warmth seep into her fingers. The Café copyright was nearly empty on Christmas afternoon at just her, the young barrister wiping down tables, and the soft hum of holiday music playing somewhere in the background. She told herself it would be fine, spending Christmas alone this year. Her daughter Susan was celebrating with her husband's family in Oregon. Her son David was stationed overseas. They'd both called that morning, their voices bright with love and apology, and Margaret had assured them she was perfectly content. And mostly, she was. 63 years had taught her to find peace in her own company. Still, something about the empty chair across from her felt heavier today. Margaret opened her book but found herself reading the same paragraph 3 times. Outside, families hurried past bundled in scarves and laughter. She took another sip of coffee and tried to focus on the words in front of her. The bell above the door chimed. A man entered, snow dusting his shoulders, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 7. The child wore a bright red coat with white fur trim and looked around the Café copyright with wide, curious eyes. The man, perhaps in his late 30s, had tired lines around his eyes but smiled down at his daughter with unmistakable tenderness. "Table for 2?" the barrister asked. "Please," the man said softly. Margaret glanced back at her book as they settled at the table beside hers. She couldn't help overhearing their conversation. "Can I have hot chocolate with extra marshmallows?" the little girl asked, her voice filled with hope. "Extra marshmallows it is, Emma," her father replied. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." "Merry Christmas, Daddy." Something in the way he said it, a gentle weariness beneath the tr made Margaret's heart squeeze. She recognized that tone. She'd used it herself years ago, working to make holidays special for her own children during the difficult years after her divorce. Emma began chattering about a book she'd received that morning, and her father listened with patient attention, occasionally brushing snow from her hair. Margaret found herself half listening, touched by the obvious love between them. Then Emma's voice dropped to a whisper, though Margaret could still hear. "Do you think Mommy's celebrating Christmas in heaven?" Margaret's chest tightened. She kept her eyes on her book but couldn't read a single word. "I think so, honey," the father said quietly. "I think she's watching over us right now, proud of what a kind, wonderful girl you are." "I miss her at Christmas most," Emma said simply. "Me too, sweetheart." "Me too." There was a long pause. Margaret felt tears prickling at her eyes. She thought about all the Christmases she'd taken for granted, the ordinary moments that had felt so permanent. "But we have each other," the father continued, his voice steady with love. "And that's what matters most. Your mom would want us to be happy and grateful for that." "I am happy," Emma said. "And grateful." "That's what Mommy always said, to notice the good things." Margaret's throat felt tight. What wisdom in such a young voice, what grace in that father's gentle strength. Their hot chocolates arrived. Margaret could see from the corner of her eye how the father pointed out the tower of marshmallows, making Emma giggle. The sound was like bells. Without quite deciding to, Margaret closed her book. She turned slightly toward their table. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I couldn't help overhearing." "I hope you don't mind." The father looked up, concern crossing his face briefly, then softening. "Not at all. I just wanted to say, what a beautiful thing you just told your daughter about noticing the good things." Margaret smiled at Emma. "Your mother sounds like she was a very wise woman." Emma's face brightened. "She was. She used to say that every day has at least one good thing in it, and it's our job to find it." "What a lovely way to live," Margaret said. "I think I needed to hear that today." The father studied Margaret's face ere the single coffee cup, the book, the quiet solitude. Understanding passed between them, the kind that needed no words. Two people who knew what it meant to carry on, to make the best of things, to find joy despite loss. "Would you?" He hesitated. "Would you like to join us? We'd be happy for the company." "I'm Thomas, and this is Emma." Margaret felt something warm unfold in her chest. "I'm Margaret, and I would love that." "If you're sure." "We're sure," Emma said immediately, her smile radiant. Margaret gathered her things and moved to their table. The conversation flowed easily after that. Emma told her about her school, her love of drawing, her cat named Whiskers. Thomas shared that he taught history at the middle school, that they'd spent the morning at his mother's house before she left for an evening shift at the hospital as she was a nurse. "So we thought we'd have our own little Christmas adventure," Thomas said. "Just the two of us." "Well, three of us now." Margaret told them about her own children, showed them photos on her phone. She found herself laughing as Emma demonstrated her impression of Whiskers chasing a laser pointer. The loneliness that had sat so heavy an hour ago had lifted like morning fog. "You know what?" Emma announced suddenly. "I found today's good thing." "What's that, sweetheart?" Thomas asked. Emma looked at Margaret with those wise, open eyes. "Making a new friend on Christmas. That's special." Margaret felt tears threaten again, but these were different, warm and healing. "You know what, Emma? That's my good thing today too." Thomas's eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. "Thank you," he said quietly to Margaret. This means more than you know." "Thank you," Margaret replied. "Both of you, for reminding me that kindness is everywhere, even on the days we feel most alone." They stayed at that table for another hour, three people who'd been strangers that morning, now connected by something simple and profound. When they finally prepared to leave, Emma asked if they could exchange phone numbers with Margaret. "Maybe you could come for dinner sometime," she suggested hopefully. Margaret looked at Thomas, who nodded with a smile. "We'd love that," he said. "Truly." As Margaret walked home later through the quiet snow-dusted streets, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel that morning: a gratitude, deep, abiding gratitude for the kindness of a father and daughter who'd made room at their table, for the reminder that connection can bloom anywhere, anytime, for the good things, waiting to be noticed. She thought of Emma's mother, that wise woman who taught her daughter to look for light in every day, and she silently thanked her too, for raising a child who understood that kindness was the best gift of all. Margaret smiled into the falling snow. Tomorrow, she'd call Susan and David and tell them about her Christmas afternoon, about Thomas and Emma, about the good thing she'd found, and she'd really remember that we're never as alone as we feel. That kindness creates family where there was none before. That every day truly does hold at least one good thing, if we're willing to look for it. Even on Christmas, in a nearly empty cafe. Copyright, especially then.